Hello and welcome to Breaking the Cycle to Step Forward. I'm Beverley Ann.
And I'm Chris Tuck. Welcome everyone.
Hello, and today we're talking about trust. And I would like to reassure people we're doing it from a lived experience and also from a professional capacity. So Chris, I know you've been online and you've been looking up the meaning of trust. Would you like to share with us what you found?
Yeah, of course. So it says online that trust is the foundation of all relationships because it allows you to be vulnerable and open to the person without having to defensively protect yourself. So trust is something that is earned through actions. It's almost like trust is the truth of someone. It's their character. It's your dependence on them. It's you being able to rely on them because you feel safe. So that is in a nutshell what trust actually means. But how can we define it as a feeling, Beverley? How do you think we can define it as a feeling?
Well, let's go back to childbirth and have a look at our expectations as a baby. You know, we understand the importance of being a baby and our caregivers around us because we can't do anything for ourselves. And we rely on the caregivers around us to look after us, to nurture us, and to make us feel safe. And unfortunately, that doesn't always happen. That can be from the womb, actually, when we're in the womb. And we've touched on this before, but when we leave the womb, if our caregivers, and we're going to, for the sake of trust, look at a parent, as in a mother and a father at the moment, if for any reason we're not with our birth parents or our caregivers, whoever they may be, our birth parents, etc., break that trust with actions and we don't feel safe, what message are we learning about trust?
Okay, so these are foundational, deep-rooted expectation that it just happens when you are a baby, a toddler, and between you as an individual and the people that are caring for you.
Absolutely, it's a bit like building a house. Would you consider building a house without any foundations?
No.
So that's why it's an expectation of having that in your foundations as a baby. It is the root, I think you said that so well, the root of who we are.
Yeah. So we've just expressed what it is, but why is it so important? So if we don't have trust in a relationship, being ourselves, with ourselves and other people, what could go wrong? What is it that happens when we don't have trust?
Well, we've said, first of all, it's the actions and it's that feeling safe and it's safe enough to feel vulnerable. If we learn that it's not safe to be vulnerable because the consequences are A, B, C, then we're learning that life isn't safe, that it's not safe to be vulnerable. And as we've spoken about before, you know, we know how to survive. We have these strong, resilient strengths in us. But if we're unable to be vulnerable, how can we trust ourselves, let alone anybody else? How can we have a wholesome relationship with ourselves if the messages that we've learned are that we're not safe?
And again, it's that silencing of emotions, isn't it? You know, you're not allowed to feel anger. You're not allowed to cry. You're not allowed to feel sad, upset. You're not allowed to show it. It's all of that, isn't it? That's all built on a trusting relationship that you can be your authentic self.
Absolutely. So if we look, you know, we talked about lived experience. I'll share some lived experience. I learned from an extremely early age not to tell anyone. I was keeping a huge secret about what was happening with my dad, with me. And, you know, even in the household with domestic violence, you know, you didn't tell anyone, didn't tell nanny or granddad what was happening indoors. I didn't, obviously the age, I didn't know the language, but it was just a learnt message. You don't tell that, because what I was hearing were my parents telling the other members of the family a different story. So as a child, what am I learning?
So it's almost like the caregiver's relationship needs to be like a role model for the children, so the children learn all of this instinctively.
Yes, and we do learn instinctively. So when we then in another environment, and it's in a good environment, and we know we've said that with other friends, we suddenly start to realize subconsciously what doesn't feel right and what does feel right, and then our inward battle starts. You know, I lived in an environment, I was taken away from my parents, that was fundamentally good, and I was reassured when I was upset, but when I was being returned home to that environment I didn't want to go to, whilst I was reassured and comforted because I was crying, there was no one asking me, why was I crying? So again, that's another layer of not being able to trust in what was going to hear. Is the message that I took as a young child, and we all take those messages on as children about what we're seeing and what we're hearing around us, even from the media.
But it's also like trusting that if you were able to speak up, that there wouldn't be any repercussions for doing so.
Well, I'm a child, so
Yeah.
you know, be seen and not spoke. See, what's it? I can't even get my words out now. But we would never encourage children to speak, and there's that imbalance. So some of the messages, they're the adult, you're the child. So as the adult, you do as I say because I'm the adult. Also respect your parents. Now, I don't disagree with any of this, but then we need to rebalance it, because I was giving respect to my parents in my own actions as a child, but were my parents actually giving respect to me as a young person and what I needed? And for me, the answer was no. And that can come, as we've said, in many different formats. So even when it's unintentionally.
So again, growing up, it's almost like caregivers, parents, whatever they are to you, they've got to trust you in your actions. So if a curfew is set, for example, and you, as a teenager, you go out and you come home within that curfew, a trust bond is being built, isn't it? So it's almost like that is leading by example. They're giving, you're adhering, the trust is built up, and then that's how the relationship goes forward. But if you are quite a rebellious teenager for whatever reason, and you continuously do not abide by the rules of the house or whatever it is, I'm talking about in a loving, nurturing environment, then the trust is going to be broken, and then your caregivers, your parents, will not trust you. So it is about, as you're growing up, to learn give and take, to learn respect, learn the trust, and build it that way. That's how we should be building it.
So I can see that when I was 15 and I was fostered, wonderful, I was going to this new family, and those boundaries were in place, and it started off really well. And then different things happened. So for instance, I was accepted to go into a certain place and then just told you can't go there anymore, which felt like a punishment. So that was being taken away. Well, as soon as that happened, that triggers the old learning and the old messages. So I want to go, I'm going to lie about where I'm going. And then when that gets found out, all trust is broken, especially when they read my diary. So that's in my space.
And then your private stuff.
What happens is it seems such a small thing, but everything comes crashing down. And that's because the foundation of trust was never really built from a young age. So we may see like the tip of an iceberg and think, well, someone's really overreacting there, but what you don't know is what's underneath. What are your own thoughts for yourself about trust there, Chris, with your own lived experience?
I was just going to say to you, could we just share an example between me and you, because we are good friends. So if we broke the trust with each other, what would that look like, and what would the impact be? Because then I think it would help the listeners really resonate with that. So let's make something up between us. So I don't know, we're good friends. Let's say there was a boyfriend, for example, and a lot of this goes on in teenagers, doesn't it? Because we're immature and we don't understand relationships. So there was a boy, we both fancied them. Maybe you was going out with them, but I went behind your back and I kissed him or something like that. Let's just keep it really simple. Obviously that would break your trust in me big time, because I've gone behind your back and I've almost taken something from you or violated something that you hold dear and precious to you.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, thinking as a teenager, our friends and our chosen romantic partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, are so important to us. And we want to be accepted as a whole. And to see you take something away from me, which is a relationship with somebody else, where's our trust between each other? And trust for me is about boundaries as well. There's no respect. So you've not respected my boundaries or my thoughts. Now there's a different way of doing it. You could have come to me. You could have come to me and said, I've fallen in love with him. Do you see what I mean? We may have had a disagreement, but we knew where each other was.
Understood.
Now it may be that I was going to finish with him anyway, because he wasn't what I wanted. I would have had the opportunity and the choice to take an action. But we would have had that chance to speak first of all.
And you may have even wished me well. Who knows?
I might have said, well, you know what? Off you go.
It could have had one of two outcomes, couldn't it? It could have been like, you wish me well, or it could have broken the friendship, either way. But, there is a right way and a wrong way of doing things.
And going back to the meaning of trust, having that opportunity to be vulnerable. Of
actually sharing that I've fallen in love with your mystical or magical boyfriend that we're using in this scenario.
And the opportunity for me to be vulnerable. Whoa, hold on, do I really want this, or don't? What do I want? Having that choice. And that's where for me particularly as well, that trust is important. So even though that conversation sounds like it's going to be horrible, actually no, that enables me to trust you more.
Because I've been open and honest. And also you would have had the opportunity to say to me, well, actually, Chris, I hear what you're saying about how you're feeling, but I actually really love this guy. Could you please back off? Step away, respect my relationship. And then I've then got the opportunity to go, I hear you. Okay, I'm really sorry. And then our friendship, even though it might have been dented a little bit, we've got the opportunity to carry on, because girlfriends relationships and boy relationships, they usually outlast a boy-girl relationship or an intimate relationship. They usually do, don't they?
And
especially at that age.
We said that together. And often what we find with trust is the thing we fear the most, that vulnerability, of being open or having that challenging conversation or experience, is the thing that often we try to avoid, and that's what breaks the trust.
So we've almost talked about, once a trust is broken, how do we get it back with the person that's broken that trust? And as we've just sort of explained, it all depends how the issue or the challenge was addressed. So if you address it in an adult way, which often you haven't got that mature thinking when you're a teenager, because you just don't have it, because you don't have the experience. But as adults, we do have the more maturity, and we can discuss it in the way that we've just described. But it's really difficult, isn't it, to get trust back with someone who's actually broken your trust.
It is. And one of the things I want to go back a little bit is, saying that as an adult, we know. Sometimes we don't know, or we do know, but we don't believe that we have those skills.
Okay.
So for me, I'm going to say, for me, what's important is I'm a reflective person. So if I've, had a confrontation with somebody, because that's what it is confrontation, and it hasn't gone in the best way possible for both of us, I like time to reflect about it, so that I've got a chance to actually look at my own feelings. What is it? What am I feeling? What has been triggered? What could I have done differently? And I'm not saying that there is always something what you could do differently, but I find that that's my way of checking in. And then also, when I've checked in with myself, then think about the other person.
And what's going on for them.
Yes. Now, I can't change anything for them, and we don't physically have that responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
However, we can hear what that other person, and then it gives me the choice to be able to consider, okay, first of all, with their actions, what is it that we can do differently? But most importantly, do I want to trust that person again?
Yeah.
There are all different levels.
Yeah, and different scenarios. And it's really, I'm laughing, but that scenario that I just brought out the top of my head actually wasn't just out the top of my head. That actually happened to me with my first boyfriend.
Yeah.
Someone cheated on me with my boyfriend in front of me, and that's how we actually broke up. But I was so wary of that person forever and a day. From that day onwards, I just thought, no, I'm staying right away from you, and I'm definitely going to protect any of my future relationships away from you, because I know what you're like now. Your card is marked.
Yes. So for me, with a serious relationship, that my ex, and I'm not going to say anything else, went off with somebody else. We had a conversation. We set the boundaries. We worked at understanding and hearing, and then he did it again. So that was it. And then after that, I've always made it clear this is a fundamental part of my relationship.
Yeah.
It's about trust. So if it ever happened again, there was no second chance.
Yeah.
It's over.
But you live and learn, don't you, Beverley? Because there will be people listening to this that have had a relationship trust issue. And it's like, do I give them a second chance? Do I not give them a second chance? And it works both ways. Men and women cheat on each other. But that's up to you. No one can say what is right and what's wrong for you. But usually people do go, actually, okay, you've had your chance. I'll give you a second chance. But once that's done, nah, that's it. Exactly like you've just explained.
Yeah. And that's where understanding what our own boundaries, and this trust is really great, because for anybody listening now, if this is the first time they've listened to us, go back to a few different episodes, because it's built up really nicely.
Yeah.
Because, we do have choice. We can respond differently, but it is about looking at ourselves as well. And that's not, as we've said before, as if like, what, you're saying I'm wrong all the time? No, it's not.
No.
It's when we learn to trust ourselves and our reactions, then we're able to be more clear in what we want to choose going forward, and whether or not we want to trust this person again.
Absolutely, 100%. So for those that have had trust issues, because obviously if you've gone through any childhood abuse of any kind, you've had your trust broken. And it is really difficult to be vulnerable and trust anybody, purely because you don't want to be hurt, you don't want to be harmed, you don't want to go back there. So usually we have our walls up, and some of us have our walls up very, very high and for a very long time. How do we break these walls down? How do we learn to trust other people that are not out there to hurt you, that are out there genuinely wanting a friendship with you or a romantic relationship with you, or whatever it is? How do we learn to have these healthy relationships? How do we learn to trust again?
So we come back to two words that are really key in my vocabulary, whether it be personal or professional. The first one is balance, and the second one is vulnerability. Because until we're able to be vulnerable, we're unable to build a relationship and trust in each other. So it's learning to be vulnerable and getting that balance. So I will say, at one time with new relationships, my defenses were up higher than a bank being raided.
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh.
No,
I resonate.
Yeah. And how was I ever going to trust in me? How was I going to learn what trust was in me, let alone anybody else? But that's where it's, I didn't want to always keep them down, but up. But if I brought my boundaries down so low, or my defense mechanism, then I'm trusting too quickly. Can you see how you can go from one to the other?
Yeah, but so how do you do it? What is the actual strategy or action plan of doing it?
Well, for me, and when I'm working with clients, the first thing we look at, forget everyone else, is write down what's important to you in trust. What do you need? Because what I need and what you need, Chris, are two very different things. So I would say for me to be able to trust, I want honesty and I want respect for my honesty as well. So that's important for me to build a trust.
And it's almost like, isn't it? You get them to tell you a little bit about themselves. You tell a little bit. You build a little bit. You build a step together, and then it goes on and on and on. And you build these little steps, but it's a compromise. It's like, right, I've shared a little bit of myself with you. How are you going to react to that? How are you going to respond to that? And depending on that response, you then give a little bit more.
So what's important for you to build trust?
Yeah, again, it's exactly that. I want to know a little bit about someone's background. I want to know if there's any similarities of experience, of knowledge. I want to know if there is any empathy there. I want to find out about the person and their traits. So if someone comes across quite arrogant, not understanding, not empathetic, my brick wall will stay up and I'll walk away. But if someone shows me a bit of vulnerability, shares a little bit of themselves with me, and I get that gut instinct that there is a friendship can be based, then that is how my trust is built with someone.
Yeah. And you said a really key thing earlier about actions. So for me, actions are more important than words.
Yeah.
Because it's the doing, the seeing, the feeling, taking that time to see what's going to happen and how it manifests.
Yeah. For me, it's about putting the same amount of energy into a relationship. It's about giving as much as taking. It's about, so mine and your friendship, Beverley, for example, you've come to my house, I've come to yours, you've checked in on me, I've checked in on you, we've worked together, not all at once. We've built these steps as we've gone on, and we know exactly where we're both coming from, and we're not about harming or hurting each other. So for example, in my career progression, I'm not going to step all over you just to get somewhere. I'm going to work with you and build it with you, because I want just as much for you as I want for myself.
Yes, but it starts with yourself. So
yeah,
you've been working with yourself. You know this is what you're doing. Same as me. I know who I am and what I'm doing.
Yeah.
then we're able to be vulnerable with each other and bring each other together. And if we don't agree, allow each other the space
say that.
to say that, rather than like avoid it, because it's important.
Yeah, it's part of growing and nurturing that relationship, isn't it?
Yes, yes. So if anybody's listening to this and they've got any questions, please do contact us by email or put a comment below, because it's really lovely how our episodes are coming together now and people have asked us and we're covering different subjects.
Yeah, yeah. Can I just ask you, what has been the impact on you of having your trust broken? How has it made you actually feel?
Oh, devastated, absolutely devastated. And I'm not going to take that away at different levels. When you've been vulnerable and you've trusted someone and you've shared something, and then they've either used it back on you, that information, which can happen. And
it happens a lot.
Yeah. Or when someone's betrayed me in whatever way. Yeah, that is awful. And I'm not saying that even now, you know, the work that I do, that doesn't hurt, because it does. And however, there's a difference now, because at one time it would compound the messages that I'd learned as a child. Whereas now, on reflection, as I said, I check in with myself.
Right.
And I nurture myself and I ask myself, is there something I could have done differently? How have I received that? Is that right? And actually for me, and I can think of something, I'm not going to go into details, I can think of 2 weeks ago, you know, it floored me at first, but then I had time to go away, think about it, check in with myself, and then be able to trust my own reactions and then go, well, actually, that's not right for me. And when I was ready, I was able to go back to that person and say,
have a chat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it really is all about trusting yourself.
Yes.
That relationship with I, me. Yeah. And then going from that to other relationships.
Yeah. And, you know, that feeling we get in our stomach. And the reason why I say it's about us trusting ourselves, because what's right for you, Chris, in trust is not necessarily right for me. So we may be in the same scenario and something happen or someone says something, but we take it differently. But we trust in how we've responded.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're looking thoughtful there.
Yeah, I'm just like, just thinking of those people that really, really struggle with trusting and moving on in relationships, and they just allow others to literally trample all over them. And that's because their self-esteem has been knocked so down because of how they've been treated. They don't actually know what it's like to feel trust, to build trust, to say, no, you're not going to treat me like that. And some people actually find comfort in being trampled on. Sorry, that's my language, not maybe other people's language. Being trampled on or being treated not nicely, because there is a safe feeling in being treated that way, even though looking inwards, it's just toxic and it's abusive. And I really want to reach out to those people today, Beverley, and really go, you know what, those relationships, they're not right for you. And I'm saying that quite harshly, because you deserve and need that trusting, respectful, happy, healthy relationship with yourself and others.
And once we have that, we can make that. So I remember, here are some of the scenarios. Better the devil you know. I've invested so much into this relationship. Have I got to start all over again?
I haven't got the energy to do that.
Yeah, this is good as it gets. And I believed at one time that that's it. This relationship is as good as it gets. And actually, that's fine, because it's better than what I had growing up. So I didn't know I could have better. So
It just breaks my heart.
oh, absolutely. And
I'm
you know,
not judging, but it breaks my heart to hear that.
absolutely. But that's what's, you know, we're being honest here.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
people can tap in, you know,
Yeah.
it must be me. You know, how many
Wow.
children growing up, you know, believe, you know, when their parents split up, it must be me. If I'd have been good, they wouldn't have split up. Yeah. Yeah. If I'd have been good, they wouldn't have split up.
Yeah.
You know, also acceptance for yourself. You know, I was one of those children that growing up, to keep quiet, you know, I was always good. You know, I was fighting to be naughty.
Yeah.
So when you know, in a relationship, if I was being really good and someone told me I wasn't, oh, hold on. And this is when I talk about balance, because I talk about checking in with myself.
Yeah.
Talk about balance, because I now don't, you know, if I check in with myself and I trust where I am, then I'm like, actually, no, stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how I work with my clients as well, because we're looking, you know, where's the balance here?
Yeah. And, you know, as we always say, hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? Because with hindsight, we can reflect, we can see what's the pattern is, and we can break that cycle 2 step forwards out of where we are.
Yes. Yeah. And we don't always know at the time, but by learning to check in, and that is the key, learning to check in. Does this work for me? Am I trusting myself with my own boundaries?
Yeah. Yeah. And to enforce those boundaries, as we spoke about in the last podcast, it's really important that you practice a small boundary and then move on to bigger ones, because once you put boundary in place, those people outside of those boundaries that you've put in, they're not going to like it. They're going to want to smash them down. They're going to want to call you out for it. But that's why you need to be strong in the knowledge that that boundary is there to protect you, your mental, your physical health, and you as a person.
Yeah, and that is so important, because, you know, bringing it back to you and me, let's take a scenario. We could want to go out and have a nice lunchtime, but what's nice for you and what's nice for me are two very different things. What you want to eat may be very different to me, but our experience, you know, I might like to go somewhere where there's loud music and it's really fun, hip and everything, the rest of it. You might think, actually, I want somewhere quieter today. I'm not in that space. I want it so loud, or vice versa. But it's being able to trust yourself and saying, actually, Beverley, yeah, I do like it really loud sometimes, but today it's not right for me.
And negotiating.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But being able to say that's not easy, because that's that small boundary you're talking about, that for some people, oh no, as long as the other person's happy, well, that's okay, but what about yourself sometimes?
Yeah. Wow. How are we doing for time?
I'll be very honest, I haven't even looked. I would say we're at our 30 minutes. So
yeah, I would say that. So let's wrap up for this week then. So have you got anything else to say to everybody who's listening?
Remember to check in with yourself. What's right for you? What are you feeling in the stomach? Is this right for you? Is it not? It's okay to make a choice, and trust in yourself. And sometimes it's okay to be vulnerable, have that courage. And there's a great video by Brené Brown, if somebody wants to find that on YouTube, to watch that as well.
And is it called Trust?
It's Having the Courage to Be Vulnerable by Brené Brown.
Okay, yeah, lovely. All right, so on that note, this is our 5th podcast, and it's about trust. Okay, so bye from me.
And before you go, what's your last word on trust?
Oh, I thought I'd said it. I trust my gut. So if it don't feel right, it's not right. But it takes a long time to get in tune with that, and it takes practice. But I do trust my gut.
Yeah, well done. Okay. And look forward to seeing everyone soon.
Yes. All right then. Goodbye, everyone. And thank you for listening.
Bye-bye.